Apocalypse Daily, the 5th of May. And today's video is a cool reframe that I got the other day while speaking to a therapist friend of mine. This is an idea that actually is slightly revolutionizing the way I'm thinking about coping with things, as the title will be following and aptly named. Coping mechanisms. From my understanding and from my experience, they tend to have a negative connotation. Coping mechanism is like seen as a way of avoiding a problem. But the perspective I got, and it was great because she had actually never even heard that connotation, and she was surprised by it, is that coping mechanisms merely means a mechanism by which you cope. And that makes perfect sense. And so anything that you use to process an emotion, to process a situation, to process a thing going on in your life is by definition a coping mechanism. And so the trick is not to get rid of coping mechanisms. The trick is to refine them so that the side effects are less and less impactful in your day-to-day life. And so the side effects could just be time. If there's a coping mechanism that takes 10 hours to complete, that is much more inconvenient than one that takes 10 minutes to complete. Or if there's one that takes lots of alcohol, that is much more inconvenient than one that takes fresh air. And so there's all sorts of coping mechanisms that you can use that might serve their function for the short term. And take something like, antidepressants. They might be a very appropriate coping mechanism for some amount of time, but not ideal because you need the thing. And ideally, if you didn't need the thing, then life would be more convenient if you could get the same benefit endogenously, unless the only way to get that same benefit endogenously was to take maybe a week to make it happen, which would be a long time. So there's pros and cons, cost-benefit analysis of all these different coping mechanisms, always playing with them, always experimenting to see what is the most appropriate tool for the job, and can I find a tool that is even more specialized? Pardon me. And yes, you can. It takes time, and it takes a fundamental acceptance that tools for psychological well-being and emotional well-being, and consequently physical and social and global well-being, are necessary. You need tools, and there's nothing wrong with admitting that you can't just snap your fingers and make the emotion go away, and that too would be a coping mechanism. It would just be a quick one, an ideal one. If you can get there, go for it. But in the meantime, let's use our mechanisms wisely. Thanks everyone. See you tomorrow.